Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And a very pleasant good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome in Life Planning 101 right here on KATX KDY. Terry Slavens with you, joined by Angela Robinson. Good morning, Angela.
Good Monday morning. What a great Monday morning it is. You know, we've got a great news this morning, right? We had a massive, what they call stimulus package. It's really not stimulus, it's really preservation package, but that they passed at the end of last week. Congress and the president signed it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be able to help most everybody in the employment, and if whether you're an employee or small business owner. Right. And so even if I had comments to me before this bill was passed, I just don't know if I'd ever want to take an SBA loan, or I don't know if I'd ever want to do this stuff. And what I'm going to tell you is that you need to be looking, because there's free money that you never even thought would be possible for you. And we're going to be doing a full show on that next Monday. Terry asked what I've been doing all weekend, and I know he was wanting to know. The answer was that she is reading the stimulus package. And yes, that is the truth. And so we've been researching, but I got online right now, and the SBA's website isn't even up to date. I think I'm ahead of them. So we're going to hold off to actually give the details. But the biggest thing is if you've got questions, feel free to give us a call at Kennedy Financial Services, because we are ahead of it and we know what's going on. We want to be able to help every one of our clients and families that we work with make sure that they're taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to them, and they are there. It doesn't matter if you are making millions of dollars a year. If you're considered a small business, there is opportunity for you to be able to get some relief, and
Absolutely.
That's huge. So great start to a Monday morning. And on that note, on the flip side to that, I actually encountered my first one-on-one basis with someone that I know dearly and have known my entire life almost, that has coronavirus. And it hit me in a different way. I've been checking in on them every day, and of course not physically. But yeah, Terry's sitting there backing up, but not physically. But I know it is a scary time for people. Everybody by this point is probably knows somebody or knows somebody that knows somebody.
Yes.
that is sick, and they're the numbers are coming out. They're getting more information, and I just ask everybody to keep these people that are sick in your prayers, not just for their healing of their bodies, but to calm their minds and ease their minds, and for the Lord to grant them peace through this. Because talking to my friend and she mentioned that in the middle of the night she just got real scared.
Right.
And I couldn't stop coughing. And, that is a scary thing, especially when you're reading all this. And imagine being sick and reading that. So, we have, I think, a duty as Americans right now, and as fellow believers in God and Christ, that we can truly help each other through this and lift each other up. And, it is a very serious time, but it's also temporary.
And follow the guidelines.
And follow the guidelines.
Just because it doesn't care if you're rich, if you're poor, if you live in the city, don't live. Politicians are getting it.
That's exactly right.
Athletes are getting it.
That's exactly right. It doesn't matter where you are, who you are, do what they're saying to do. And, with that in mind, I know there's a lot of news out there, and I'll tell you, I'm guilty. I get on first thing in the morning, and the first thing I go to, of course, is the market, right? And I want to look at everything, so I just start pounding away at what has happened in the last 24 hours, because, right now we're on top of things, and I don't typically do this during the rest of my life. Okay. So the challenge here is not to become a person that is always thinking negatively, because read it. It's negative. Read it. It's negative. And that's what we're faced with on a day-to-day basis. And so, I want to take this show, and I actually started this show as a result of a conversation I had last week with someone. And I want to share a quote by Paul Romer, who was the co-recipient of a Nobel Prize in Economics back in 2018. And he says, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So I want to put a little twist on what we're going through today. And I want to let you know that you can choose to either go through this or you can grow through this. And we're going to teach you right here on Life Planning 101 how you can grow through this crisis and not waste it.
Segment 2, Life Planning 101, right here on KETX KDY. Angela?
Yes, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, says Paul Romer, the co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in Economics back in 2018. I think he's been through a crisis or two, probably. Several, right? As we all have. And I want to start out, and there was a video circulating last week, and you may have seen it. We sent it out. So it's pretty phenomenal, and it was shared to me by a good friend and fellow advisor during this time. I'm part of this group called the Pinnacle Study Group, and we just help each other get better all the time. So we're circulating stuff like crazy through all of this. But many of you may remember a gentleman by the name of Admiral Jim Stockdale.
Yes.
Okay, so he was in Hanoi, North Vietnam, right, at what they called the Hanoi Hilton, back in 1967, and he stayed there till 1974. He was a prisoner of war, and he was brutally tortured over and over again, more than 20 times at that prison. And if you remember, Jim Collins, this is another case, so another person, Jim Collins wrote a book back in 2001 called Good to Great. Phenomenal book. If you haven't read it, highly recommended. And in that, he actually interviewed Jim Stockdale. And, he said, so how did you endure this? How did you go through this? And Admiral Jim Stockdale stated, I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which, in retrospect, I would not trade. So Collins went on to ask him, he said, well, who didn't make it out? And Stockdale replied to him, oh, that's easy. The optimists.
Really?
Really. They were the ones that said, we're going to be out by Christmas. Christmas would come and Christmas would go. They said, we'll be out by Easter. Easter would come, Easter would go. Thanksgiving. Then it would be Christmas again. And ultimately, they died of a broken heart.
Wow.
He went on to say, this is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Jim Collins calls that the Stockdale paradox. And I think a lot of us are facing that today, right? We have to have faith that we're going to prevail in the end. We will prevail in the end. How many, pandemics and epidemics and, crises has our world seen over and over and over again, and our world has come through it. Now, has it come through it with flying colors? Not always, right? But it's come through it. And, if you can't look within yourself, I encourage you to look up, right? And remember that God knows all. And we know that. We have to have that faith. But at the same time, if we sit there and we're the optimistic one, we could die of a broken heart through this, because there are truths to this that are not fun to face.
Absolutely.
There are brutal facts of this that we don't want to think about, but we must think about, because if we don't think about, then we could ourselves be a victim or cause others to be victims of the same thing, right? We just mentioned right before the break how important it is to just abide by what they're telling us to abide by, okay? This is the brutal facts of this, and I think about our president right now. We have a pro-business president. I think no matter what side of the aisle you sit on, I can say that safely, right? We have a pro-business president. So I would think he would be doing everything in his possible power to make sure that business is still business and still running. Yet he's up there saying we're going to go through the end of April with this. It's an announcement that we also got over the weekend. Right? So it's something he doesn't want to do, but he's facing the brutal facts of what has to be faced right now and what has to be done right now. So we will prevail in the end. After all, we're hard-headed, God-fearing Americans, okay?
And we're Texans.
And we are Texans. If the rest of America doesn't, you can move to Texas if you're listening to the show and you agree. But at the same time, we're also faced with really what I think are the two most brutal facts is we're in a pandemic and we're not prepared for it. There was also a video circulating. If you haven't looked it up, I encourage you to look it up. It was done by Bill Gates years ago. He said the next thing we're going to face is not some war that's going to be cyber war or anything like that. It's going to look like this. And he puts up this picture of something that looks like the coronavirus. And he says we're not prepared for it. And this is years ago when he did this video. And here we are today. We're not prepared for it. We're learning a lot, right? Our government is taking some very hard hits from not being prepared for this. And we are circumstantially taking some hard hits from not being prepared for this. I spoke with a friend in New York that said, I can't go get tested because the waiting hours are 6 hours to get into an emergency room. We weren't prepared for this. And this is some brutal facts, right? So this leaves us with two options. We can either go through this or we can grow through this. And it's a choice. I tell my kids all the time, you have a choice to be happy right now.
Get your happy pants on.
Get your happy pants on, right? If you're going to sulk, go sit in the chair. Otherwise, go have fun and play, right? We have a choice as adults, too. And we forget that sometimes. There's those shirts out there that say, choose joy. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do when your circumstances are weighing you down. And then, like I mentioned before the break, I'm guilty these days of the first thing in the morning. I'm getting on, seeing, okay, what the heck happened? Okay, what did Trump tweet that's making the market go down today? Or what, what's going on, right? And it's easy to get into those negative circumstances. However, you have to choose a path that is not going to allow you to do that. So we're going to give you some tools because here's what I do know. We will come through this and you have a choice. You can look back on this and say, man, we made it through that. Whew. Now what are we going to do? How are we going to get ourselves out of this hole that we dug? Or you can say, we made it through that. Man, we learned so much and I am just so ready to take on the world, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So here's some new priorities for you today. Let's start with number one, and then I've got two more after we get back from the break. Number one, I want you to plant seeds daily, okay? Like I said, it's easy to fall in that negativity, that stream of consciousness, whether it's the media, Congress, the ever-changing information that we're hearing on a day-to-day basis about coronavirus, the media. Okay. So, but, you got to mentally prepare for all of this because you do have to keep up with what's going on, right? So you got to mentally prepare. So I question, how do you start your day? First thing in the morning, how do you start your day? Do you do it in prayer, devotion, meditation, exercise? Maybe you need to start some new habits to get you switched on. Don't give me any excuses. You're at home 24/7 here, okay? So let's think about, how can you start your day? Here's another one. Consider journaling. I learned a long time ago, had a good coach, good friend of mine, Dr. John Rhodes. He says, we only get to have a few things that will outlive us. And stories and pictures are two of those things that outlive us, right?
Absolutely.
So journaling is an amazing thing. And, it might just be the light in the dark that your future generations are facing someday when they go through something like this. Imagine that. Imagine the power that you could have in that. And then, I always think when I write a lot. And when I write, it clarifies my thoughts. I'm able to think more clearly. I think about my thinking. That's very, very powerful. I learn about myself when I write. I learn what's really going on inside of me. I haven't taken the time to figure out and why I might be angst about something or what something is that's really pushing me to do things that I shouldn't be doing. And then, maybe I'm able to set those things aside because they're really holding me back from being the best version of myself that I could be. So that's a powerful thing to do. Have an attitude of gratitude. Okay. So gratitude is like an armor. It really is. And we talk about just being thankful for, but, really finding inside of you, what are you grateful for? And share it with your family. Share it around the dinner table or the breakfast table and get everybody to share. My kids, they're always coming up with things that they're grateful for. I mean, they're grateful for the tiniest little things, the frog that they found in the sand, but they're grateful, right? And we should all be looking to that. Make someone else's day. Call a friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, right? I had a friend that I sent virtual bluebonnet flowers to this weekend, right? Just a picture up in New York. I took a picture and I just sent them to her because she's from Texas.
Right.
So she got to see those. Write a love letter or a thank you note. How can you surprise your children or your spouse today and make them smile? Ask yourself that question and focus on that, right? And if you can't figure anything else, call your church and see, hey, do you have a phone list of people that I could reach out to? Because I promise you, everybody's feeling a little bit of isolation
Especially
right
the
now.
elderly that are shut in.
That's exactly right, yeah. And at the end of the day, finish as you started. At peace. Turn it off. Turn off the little device. Turn off the little TV, whatever it is. Watch the sunset. Don't tell me you don't have time and the weather's not beautiful. Watch the sunset. Read a good book. Collect your thoughts. Write down your greatest accomplishment for the day. Because you got one. Everybody does every single day. And if you don't, you need to start the day back over with the habits that we just talked about, right? Redo. So, and then what will you do tomorrow to make it even better? And that's the question. So, plant seeds daily. We have 2 more priorities when you come back, and some of which we're going to give you a sneak peek into what you just got passed inside the stimulus bill right here on Life Planning 101.
Final segment, Life Planning 101. Angela, let's get to it. 2 more points.
A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So are you going to go through it or grow through it? And through all this craziness that's going on and all this negativity, you've got to develop new habits to help you keep in that growth mode, especially when you're at home and if you're an extrovert. I know my husband is about to go nuts. Thank goodness that we have plenty for him to do outside. So, plant seeds daily. And we talked about that. And if you missed that part of the show, I encourage you to get on to our newsletter this week at www.kennedy-financial.com. You need to sign up, period, because during this time, like we had a special podcast that we did last week with Jim and Aaron, and they talked about the market and the things that we're doing inside the portfolio. We had this. We're also going to be coming out with, obviously, with the new stimulus package. There's tons in there for business owners to be taking advantage of, so we don't want people to be missing that. So make sure you sign up. But let's get back to being able to grow. So we talked about the Stockdale paradox and what that teaches us, right? That we have to have faith. We will prevail, but we can't be eternal optimists. And so I would say don't let a flood drown your crop, okay? Now, what is a flood? A flood of optimism or a flood of pessimism? Either one, right?
Half full or half empty.
Exactly. You can't. You've just got to be a realistic person. And, whether it's your future, whether it's your business, your retirement, your legacy, you name it. It doesn't matter. You've got to be able to be in a position to remain, where you're thinking of things for what they are and realistically and not emotionally. And you probably need a healthy dose of it. And we're finding all the time as I talk to people that people are saying, I really think I will make emotional decisions here, and I need you to help me figure out how not to make emotional decisions. And if you don't have that trusted advisor right now is the time that should be teaching you. I need to have a trusted advisor to be helping me through this situation. Because even when it comes to business, it's all personal. I hear personal comments every time I talk to a business owner about their business. It's not anything that they're doing wrong. It's just that we're all emotionally tied to something that we put long hours and work ethic into over many, many years, right?
Yes,
there's nothing wrong with that. So it is going to happen. I'm emotional about my stuff. I told a client last week, I said, quit opening your statement. When it comes out, first week of April for March, just don't even open it. I'm not going to look at mine. And that's true, because I'm not going to look at mine. What good is that going to do me? I'm not the one taking care of that money right now. My brother's taking care of that money right now. So what good is that really going to do me besides just
depression?
Yeah, exactly. Now, should I be sending in money? Absolutely. But, that's a whole different story. So The biggest thing is it's all personal, it's all emotional, and perhaps you're too close to the situation to actually see the reality. Just like the SBA loans. If you've been a no debt person your entire life, you may say, there's no way I'm going to touch that. Well, what if I told you that the government is going to give you enough money to run your business practically for 8 weeks for free?
It's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation. Well, that's what they're doing.
Yes.
Okay, so, what you might have thought you wouldn't do, you might want to think again, right?
And do it.
And then do it, right? And how do you know if it's actually logical? This is where you need to be able to have someone that you can say, am I thinking about this the right way? I had a really good friend this last week say to me, I just want to, when we get past this, I don't want to look back and I don't want to regret anything about what we've done or not done. It's a great statement.
Absolutely.
That's a great statement, because here we are in a time that we've got to be realistic about what's going on. But why waste that time if there's opportunity that can be had during that time, right? So don't let a flood drown your crop. Don't be so optimistic that you're not doing anything. And don't be so pessimistic that you won't even look at anything in a new way. Right? We always talk about politicians in my family, maybe just because of our nature of our business. And, my dad is infamous for saying, he says, I really believe what's wrong with politicians is the fact that they will never say I was wrong about. He says, and it would be so easy for them to put that political twist on there. All they have to do is say, based on new information, I now think this way.
Absolutely.
Right? But when will they do that, right? They won't do that. So, but that's the same truth with your situation right now. You've got to be in a position to say, based on new information, I can think about things a different way. Very true. So, number one thing that you need to be doing to grow through this, nothing can be done without a little sunshine, right? No growth can happen
Seeds won't
without
grow.
That's right. So, too often we hold on to those beliefs to the bitter end, and they're not good for us. And if you're not willing to grow through this, you're not going to grow through this. It's not going to happen. I'm part of what's called Strategic Coaches, a coaching group. It's phenomenal. And the founder of that group was actually my dad's coach several years ago. His name was Dan Sullivan. And he wrote a brilliant, okay, no pun intended with sunshine here, but he wrote a brilliant piece called Scary Times Success Manual. And here's just a few ways that you may need to think about your thinking. He says, forget about your losses. Focus on the opportunities. Forget about your difficulties. Focus on your progress. Forget about the future. Focus on today. Forget about your commodity, what you sell. Focus on creating value. Forget about what's missing. Focus on what's available. We have a full version of that with this article this week, so make sure you log on Kennedy-financial.com and get that, because it's extremely powerful. He goes into detail in these, and the thing is that you've got to think about a new way of thinking to grow through anything. You have to be unlike that politician and say, based on new information, I'm willing to think about things a different way. One of the most influential journalists of our time, Susan Taylor, she said, thoughts have power. Thoughts are energy, and you can make your world or break it by your own thinking.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's really good, right?
It is.
So what are you thinking? What are you thinking? How are you thinking? Are you going to go through this? Are you going to grow through this? Are you going to waste this crisis?
Are you riding an emotional roller coaster?
Exactly.
High 1 minute, down the next minute?
Exactly. So, find that level playing field. Make sure that you make these 3 things your new daily habit for this coronavirus crisis. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services right here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. Many prayers for all of your families, that everyone stays healthy and stays happy through this time. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Carlton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Carlton & Associates. Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group LLC.